How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? This is Indeed Gaming here. I'm in fact Mr. Indeed, and welcome to my channel. Please do like, share, and comment on this video, and we're gonna get right into it. Now, I want to start this video off with kind of a follow-up to the beginning of my last video, where I spoke on some of the controversy surrounding this game, and it brought up some other controversy that I saw in my comment section. I've also seen quite a bit of YouTubers making videos about this, so I'm guessing this is a thing. So I want to get people's opinion on this, and let me know what you think in the comment section below, because maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm the outlier. People seem to be under the impression that this game should not be worth $70. How you know that and you haven't played it yet, we're not going to get into that. There's a million different examples that I could go into, or a million different reasons that I could go into of why games in general should probably cost more than $60 now. But I just want to put things into context. Games went from $49.99 to $59.99 in 2005 with the Xbox 360. Are you guys trying to argue that games nowadays are not of a higher visual quality and what the games are capable of than 360 games? Is this what we're arguing? Because if that's what you're trying to argue, I'm sorry, I 100% disagree, and I'm curious what you guys believe. Again, put it in the context. Do you think that Arkham Asylum is a better quality game as far as visuals and what the game is capable of than Gotham Knights? Because that game was worth $59.99, which is $10 less than what Gotham Knights is worth. Are you under the impression that these games are on the same level as far as quality goes? Because I'm not. Now, obviously, these are two different games. Asylum was not a free roam game, or an open world game, I should say. It was a lot more linear. So the games aren't really a one-to-one comparison. But if we're talking about the visuals and quality of the game, what the games are capable of, I'm sorry. This is better as far as I don't want to say better, because better is subjective, but it's a higher quality game visually. It is higher quality. So I don't know why people seem to think that just because something doesn't have 60 frames per second at launch, all of a sudden it's not worth more money. That's not the only thing that makes a game worthwhile. It's not the only thing that makes video games good. I've been enjoying video games on 30 FPS and lower for over 2 decades now. And please keep in mind, this isn't me saying the Arkham Asylum game was a bad game. I love that game. It was one of the best games on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. But it also costs the same amount of money as every other game that came out on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. It's so you got to remember, someone go look up, when you watch this video, I should say, go look up what Call of Duty 2 looked like, what Quake 4 looked like, whatever FIFA game and NBA game, or I don't know, 2K, whatever one of those games was coming out at those times, the Maddens. It's go look at those games, and then look at what games look like now. Why do you think that these games should cost the same amount of money? With anything, not just video games, anything, when quality goes up, price goes up. And I know people don't want to spend money. I don't like spending money. But at the same time, I'm not going to pretend like these things are the same quality just because I don't want to spend money, because that's not real life. It's so I'm curious. It's go look at the launch titles that came out for these systems when games went from $49.99 to $59.99, and let me know, do you think that these games are on the same level as far as quality and what they're capable of? Remember what those games were. If they've been remastered, don't look at those ones. Look at the ones that came out then, that were $10 less than this game was then. Well, this game is, I should say, then. Go take a look at them. Let me know what you guys think and why you think that these games should be the same quality. I mean, and obviously you can only speak to that to a certain amount just because this game hasn't came out yet. So I understand that. I'm not expecting you guys to have, full essays on everything wrong with this game because you don't know yet, just like I don't. So I'm curious what you guys believe on that particular subject. Do you think that games should still cost as much now as they do or as they did on the Xbox 360 and PS3? Because we are 2 systems past that now. Well, 1 second system past it, I should say. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about that. That is not what this video is about, though. So anyway, this video is going to continue basically what I was doing with the other one, where I will kind of give a general overview of something of the game, and then I will give my criticism of it. But I will say for this one, it's going to be a lot harder for me to give any genuine criticism because I haven't played the game. I don't know the entirety of the game. There's certain things that I do know based on leaks or whatever, but there's certain things that I still don't know, which are the things that I'm focusing on right now. And that is the villains. As far as we know right now, as far as the game goes, there are 3 single villains. Now, I know that they count the Court of Owls and the League as villains, but I'm not really counting them as villains because they're more of an organization. You're fighting their organization. But when I say how many villains are in the game, I'm talking about single named villains. So the 3 villains that we have that we're dealing with in this game so far that we know about is going to be Harley Quinn, Clayface, and Dr. Freeze. We've already seen the Dr. Freeze, how this Dr. Freeze one kind of pans out. We've already seen the Harley Quinn one. The Clayface one is completely, we don't know. We have no idea what really goes on in that particular villain story. But those are the 3 villains we deal with, and those are the 3 villain stories. What villain stories are basically long missions, mission chains, I guess you could say, that you have to go through so that you can get through to fight these particular villains. And this, I think, is a really good structure for a superhero game in general, because this is how a comic book or a movie or an episode for one of these, a comic book character would pan out. You start out, you find out so-and-so villain is doing X, and then you have to do, they have to do investigations, go to this place, find this thing out and stuff like that, so that they can find out what it is this villain is planning, where they're going to try to execute it, and then stop them. This, in my opinion, is a perfect template that any and every superhero game going forward should copy. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little different for certain heroes, I guess, because they're not actually detectives. That's not really what they work on. But it's if you're dealing with someone like Spider-Man, it's Spider-Man does do a bit of detective work. He's not like Batman per se. And then honestly, all superheroes do a little bit of investigation, even if they're not called the world's greatest detective or trained by him like these characters are. It's so honestly, no. Yeah, they could take this template and copy and paste it on a Spider-Man game, on an Iron Man game, on a Superman game. You name them, they could do it. This is what superheroes do in comic books all the time, is they have these drawn out mission chains pretty much of finding out what a villain is doing and stopping them. And I want to see this more, definitely. Now, if we're getting into the criticisms of this, obviously the issue would be there's only 3. And one of the things I should have said before is that the thing that I like about this most is that this is separate from the main story. So this means these are things that you could probably go through the entire main story, but then now you're at a high level and you're going to be able to go through these things after the story and still have something to do. And also, let me reiterate the thing that they have said is that depending on your level when you do these missions will depend on how difficult the boss is. They may use different tactics and stuff like that. So basically, even for the Dr. Freeze and the Harley Quinn stuff that we have seen, like we've seen parts of their boss fight can end up being completely different on your game, according to them, I should say, based on what level you're at. So if you go into it at the beginning of the game versus you beating the entire story mode and then doing it, you may have a completely different experience than somebody, which is also another thing that I think should be copy and pasted and move forward in any superhero game going forward. But this is supposed to be the criticism part, so let me get into that. Now, this is kind of a criticism, but maybe and maybe not, because I understand from certain, looking at it from their standpoint, there's a lot of work that goes into making these things. So I'm not super upset or anything that there's only 3 of them. And obviously every villain doesn't deserve one. That would be a whole lot of work. I would love it personally, but it's not really necessary. But only having 3 in your game is like, I'm hoping that there's more to the game itself without these and without the main story to keep me interested in playing the game going forward, because that is a very common issue when it comes to comic book hero video games, is that once you've beaten the main story mode and you've beaten, like, I guess you could call them side missions here and there, and some games do better at side missions than others. It's like once you've done some of those things, like there's really nothing for you to do. So I'm really hoping that the open world really, steps in and helps out on that. And then also, this gives them an excellent opportunity for DLC, because with every DLC, they could add 1 or 2 or 3 more villain stories from other villains. I guess I would say that my only issue with that particular thing would be is that if they're going to have their own villain story, that means that they're probably not going to be in the game as just a villain that you can happen across in the open world, and which I've said before is something that I would like to see. Now, obviously, every villain's not going to be like that, but a lot of villains probably could be. Like, you could have an open world event where, for whatever, Deathstroke finds out Batman's dead, or someone else finds out Batman's dead, and then they hire Deathstroke to kill the Gotham Knights. And then he's just an open world boss that you can fight. You beat him, he runs away, and he comes back and tries again later or something. It's like, that's something that you don't really need a whole lot of dialogue. You don't really need a whole lot of cutscenes or anything like that. Same thing with Deadshot. You could run that exact same thing with him because he's also an assassin. It's like, so I want to be able to run into named villains in dynamic events in the open world to keep the open world more interesting. So I would say I can't necessarily call this a criticism because I don't know if this is in the game yet. But, and then obviously this is just me wanting it in the game. So, I mean, I guess there's a lot of caveats to this, I should say. But if their open world isn't able to sustain gameplay until they add more DLC, which is a very common thing in comic book hero games, that's something that I'm a little curious about and I want to see a little bit more of, and I haven't really seen them talk about. Now, I have seen them say that there is a end game to this. It's like, and I have heard there's a New Game Plus. I'm hoping New Game Plus is not what they're talking about as an end game, because even though I will be playing the New Game Plus, don't get me wrong, that's not really what I would consider an end game, you know what I mean? And if the end game is only the heroic assault mode, depending on how that pans out, we'll see. Like, I can't really speak to that too much because I don't know what it all entails, and I'm sure that we'll find out. We'll probably get like a trailer in November or something like that. So that's all I really have on that. Oh, super last thing. It was raised to me in some of my comments, and I've also seen videos about this, which is how I ended up knowing about it in the first place. Is that the leaker who actually has access to the game, and I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but one of the things that he did say was that, and I actually went and I read this on Reddit from him, was that the game does drop FPS in certain areas, but for the most part, wasn't anything that killed his experience with the game. Update to that, the game has had a patch now, which I'm guessing is a day one patch, but I mean, it's not necessarily day one, so I'm not sure why they would put it in just yet. So maybe it's not maybe it's part of the day one patch. According to this leaker, the game has been running way smoother since then, and things have been much better. So we may be looking at closer to a locked 30 FPS for those of you who had heard that the game was dropping FPS over and over again. So, and honestly, for the people that I had spoken to about that in the comment section, I don't know why it didn't occur to me the game that he's playing doesn't have the day one patch. Everyone knows that games for like the last, I don't know, like 5 years, no, it's been more than 5 years. I don't know, I'm not good with time. But everyone knows that like every game has a day one patch now. So I don't know why that didn't occur to me when I was talking to the people that I was talking to about that. So yes, if you have heard the game having FPS issues as far as the 30, like getting to 30 frames and staying at 30 frames, according to the leaker, the game that he had did not have that patch. And since he's gotten it, the game has been running smoother. For a lot of games that people have gotten early and played early, it isn't uncommon for them to have FPS issues or other issues when they don't have that day one patch. So that's just to try to clear the air on some of the people who may have heard that. Yeah, that's it. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below on the things discussed in this video, and I will see you in the next one. Indeed.